The debater is always confronted with the necessity of overcoming objections raised by its opponent. So the process of overcoming these objections is known as refutation. Now, refute means to overcome opposing evidence and reasoning by proving it to be false, while rebuttal means to overcome opposing evidence and reasoning by introducing other evidence and reasoning that will destroy its effect. Now, in practice, these terms are used interchangeably. Now, how do we shift the burden of rebuttal? Now, the burden of rebuttal shifts back and forth between the opponents in the course of the debate. Now, in the typical academic debate, the first affirmative speaker usually establishes its case to place the burden of refutation on the negative. The first negative speaker then attempts to shift that burden back to the affirmative. The second affirmative speaker, by rebuilding and extending the case, seeks to shift the burden to the negative again. Then the negative presents its second constructive speech and its first rebuttal. Now, in these two speeches, the negative tries to shift the burden of rebuttal back to the affirmative. In each remaining rebuttal speeches, the advocates try to carry their share of rebuttal and to shift the burden to their opponents. Now, next, the purpose and place of refutation. So, the process of refutation has to be included in every speech of the debate. Now, what is the process of refutation? First is to overthrow opposition's evidence by demonstrating that it is invalid. Next is overthrow the opposition's evidence by introducing other evidence that contradicts it. Third, overthrow the opposition's reasoning by demonstrating that it's faulty. Overthrow the opposition's reasoning by introducing other reasoning that turns it to the opposition's disadvantage. Rebuild evidence, rebuild reasoning, present exploratory refutation, and lastly, present counter-argumentation that competes with the opposition.
Hello everyone, I will be reporting about preparing for refutation part 1. Preparing for refutation, one must familiar with all evidence and reasoning related to the proposition under the debate. Number 2, include all possible aspects of the resolution. Number 3, research on the subject has been sufficiently detailed. Number 4, recognize that on most propositions, the evidence is seldom complete. Number 5, never assume that our research is complete, but should continue it until the very moment of the debate. Number 6, have a perspective in preparing. Number 7, never limit themselves to one philosophy. Number 8, analyze both sides carefully and should consider all possible positions that may be taken on the propositions. Number 9, draft the strongest possible cases their opponents might use and prepare refutation in each cases. Number 10, consider not only the evidence their opponents may use. And that would be all. Thank you.
Continuation for Mr. Oyan's report, Argumentation and Debate, Preparing for Refutation. First, arguments be presented and claim first. At this point, the argument phrased is positively in 7 words or less. Second, keeping the tagline in brief form. Longer taglines require the judge to paraphrase or interpret the debater's words. Third, should present their evidence or support. This is the data for argument. Debater offers the summary of warrant. A summary of warrant is, in other words, is an explanation of why the evidence supports the claim. Summarize the impact of the argument, or summarize the details of every argument. And lastly, word economy is a key to effective debating. The shorter words, but surely.
Selecting evidence and reasoning. Opponent speeches will probably contain more evidence and reasoning than we can possibly refute in the allotted time. The problem before us, then, is one of selection. The fundamental concept underlying refutation is that we must try to refute the case of our opponent. To do so, we must have an accurate picture of the case as it is presented. Charting the debate is one of the most important and most difficult skills the student must master. A flow sheet is a detailed record of the debate created by systematic note-taking. An accurate flow sheet will reflect every argument as it progresses through the 8 speeches in the debate. It will record evidence and will show which arguments were answered and which ones were dropped or not answered. The flow sheet is an indispensable tool for the debaters during a debate. The arguments are recorded in 2 parts, case side and plan of case side. The case arguments are recorded in 7 columns on one side of a paper, while the plan arguments on another group of sheets. If counterplans or topicality arguments are used, they are also recorded in separate sheets. Debaters and judges often use arrows and other symbols to record the flow of the argument. Different colored pens may be used to record cross-examination data or to identify other items. Each column on the flow sheet should be the most accurate and detailed outline possible of that speech. With appropriate adjustments, the flow sheet can be adapted to any type of argumentative situation. An outline of this type helps debaters detect, drop arguments, or weak links in the structure. It takes time and practice to learn how to keep an effective flow sheet, but debaters find it worthwhile to develop this essential skill.
The structure of refutation. The basic structure of refutation involves 5 distinct stages. Preference. Identify clearly and concisely the argument you are attacking. Response. State your position succinctly. Support. Introduce evidence and argument to support your position. Explanation. Summarize your evidence and argument. Impact. Demonstrate the impact of this refutation. In addition to the basic structure of refutation, we should be aware of the following general consideration. First, begin refutation early. It is usually in our advantage to start a refutation both early in the speech and early in the debate. The purpose of initiating a refutation early is to immediately deny the effects of some opponent's claim. Second, conclude with constructive material. Usually, we want to end the speech with constructive material aimed at advancing our case. After giving listeners a reason to disagree with their position, we give them a positive reason to agree with our position. Third, incorporate refutation into the case. It is often wise to include a refutation in our case as well planned cases meet many of the opposition's dissenting opinion. Fourth, evaluate the amount of refutation. When presenting a refutation, watch the judge or the audience carefully to adapt more effectively to the audience, looking for both obvious and subtle signs of consent or disagreement. The goal is to introduce enough refutation to satisfy a rational person. Fifth, use organized refutation. Proponents should use a clear, concise, and carefully organized refutation pattern. This makes it easy for those who make decisions to follow the refutation. Sixth, make use of contingency plans. Advocates should prepare contingency plans. They should compile briefs of evidence and arguments in advance to raise against issues they believe will be fundamental in meeting the opposing case.
Today, I will be reporting on the responsibilities of the speakers in a valid debate and a policy debate. Here are our basic understanding in the policy debate versus the valid debate. The first affirmative constructive speaker presents a prima facie case that includes all the elements of the affirmative case. The first negative constructive speaker presents negative arguments that includes off-case and on-case attacks. Same as in the valid debate, but on-case attacks is presented on point in the same order as the issues presented by the first affirmative constructive speaker. The second affirmative constructive speaker is to refute negative off and on-case attacks, re-establish and extend affirmative case arguments. In a policy debate, it is to answer the first and C arguments and to re-establish and extend affirmative case arguments, also to magnify impact on arguments by adding onto them. The second affirmative constructive speaker must speak up or extend negative arguments, and both first negative rebuttal and the second negative constructive speaker must efficiently divide this labor. In policy debate, same in the valid debate but should not be extended by 2 and C. The first affirmative rebuttal answers off and on case attacks through the negative block, also extend case arguments. The second negative rebuttal should be selective in extending arguments and know when to leave out arguments. The second affirmative rebuttal should reestablish and clinch the affirmative case arguments. And that is all. Thank you.
Now I am going to report about methods of refutation. So there are 5 methods of refutation: evidence, reasoning, fallacies, affirmative and negative refutation, and responsibilities of the speaker. Evidence is refuted by applying the test of evidence and demonstrating that the evidence advanced by the opposition fails to meet this test. To refute the evidence of the opposition, there should be a solidified claim of rebuff so as to discredit or decrease the strength of the evidence. Reasoning is refuted by applying the test of reasoning and demonstrating that the reasoning advanced by the opposition fails to meet this test. Counter the claim and demonstrate that the reasoning of the opposition is incorrect. Fallacies are refuted by exposing the argument of the opposition as fallacious. Counter the fallacies by identifying pseudo-arguments given by the opposition to prove that the arguments presented is fallacious and wrong. Affirmative and negative refutation. Affirmative side is the debate must answer all or almost all of the negative arguments and defend its entire case to win. The negative has the strategic advantage of being able to choose which argument to extend or keep alive until the last rebuttal of speech. Every advocate is encouraged to present strong evidence that the opposing will have a hard time convincing the judge otherwise. Responsibilities of the speakers. There are 8 speeches in the two-person policy debate format. The responsibilities of the speakers are already explained by Ms. Villan earlier, so I will not discuss it further. Thank you very much and good day.